Whether you are using Boris RED as a standalone application, or are using it or a close relative as a plugin to your NLE, sooner or later you are going to run into spline objects and spline primitives. If you are at home with vector programs like Adobe Illustrator, you will already be familiar with splines. The object of this tutorial is to introduce those of you who are not at home with splines, and to try and help you understand how to create and manipulate spline points and spline objects in the Boris RED environment. My timeline is set up with 2 tracks. For the lower track I have chosen a solid color in order to make it easier for you to see the lines when I'm drawing. The track above is a spline track, and the media selected is spline object. Spline primitives are related to spline objects, but this tutorial will only deal with spline objects. If I twirl down in the spline shape track, I can find this track, the path, and you can see the track media is actually contained in this track. At the moment you can't twirl down because I haven't created any spline object yet. I'll go back to the spline track, and if you take a look here at the toolbox, you'll notice that when I click on the path track, that the toolbox changes and some new tools are added. At the same time, the pen tool here is automatically selected. If I was to begin drawing a spline object and I left click in the composite window, you'll see that down there under Path, a spline object track was created. I should add that as I want to keep the spline object as simple as possible, I would go over to Fill under the control panel for the spline object and make sure that Fill On is unchecked. Then I would go to the Border tab, also under the Controls panel, and make sure that these 5 rectangles are all unselected. Then I can go back to the Animation tab and continue with the drawing of spline objects. From here I'm going to be working on this spline object track, and to make it easier to see what I'm doing, I'm now going to maximize the composite window. There are 3 types of points you can draw with the pen tool. This one, which we just created by left clicking, is known as a cusp point. Cusp points don't have any Bezier handles. The other 2 types of points are known as tangent points. They have 1 Bezier handle, and smooth points, which have 2 Bezier handles. So here we have 1 cusp point. If I move my pen to another position and click again, I have a second cusp point, and I can continue like this to draw some object. You'll see that the lines between the points are yellow if I am actually on the object. If I move away, they turn to red. If I was now happy with this object as it was, by clicking on any of the other tools, for example the solid arrow tool, I have now finished drawing here. If I was to go back to the pen tool and create another point here, I would be starting the drawing of a second spline object. I don't want to get us confused here, So we are going to remove this second spline object. One way of removing the object would be to go to the hollow arrow tool. You'll see that it selects the whole object and puts a rectangle round the object, and then press delete. Go back to the pen tool and then select the object. To do that, you have to move close enough for the object color to change to yellow, and then click once. That will activate the object. Now, I had already finished working with this object. If I want to continue drawing, I have to do the following. I have to choose either the final point or the first point. I'll take the final point here. Left click, move away from the point, hold down Alt, and then left click. And you see I've started drawing new points. If I wanted to finish this object by closing this gap between the final point and the first point, the normal method would be to click on the first point. In this build of RED 5, there seems to be a bug, which hopefully will be fixed by the time you try this. Clicking on this first point just now does not result in closing the object. The workaround for the time being would be this. Create one more point and then move back to the point, hold down the left button and drag this point over onto the first one and then release, and they will merge. Once you have your spline object drawn, if you choose the hollow arrow tool, a bounding box consisting of a rectangle will be drawn around the object. This bounding box can be used to resize the object. And by using keyframes, you can actually create an animation using this idea, and also keeping the proportions the same from one of the corners. If you hold down Control when you have the bounding box, and then take one of the corners and drag, you will start to rotate the object. If I want to move the whole object to another position on the screen, I don't drag the bounding box. I have to go inside the bounding box until I see the object changing to yellow color, click and hold down the left mouse button, and now I can move the whole object to wherever I want on the screen. Now I'll take a look at the second type of point. We'll start the spline object with a simple cusp point, so left click, move over here, and this time when I left click, I'll hold the mouse button down and then begin to drag. And when I drag, you can see that two Bezier handles are appearing, and I have now created what's known as a smooth point. I could continue creating smooth points by clicking again and dragging, again, drag, and so on. The curvature of a smooth point can be adjusted by clicking on one of the Bezier handle points and adjusting the handle. Both handles will move together in sync. If you want to adjust only one handle, let's say we want to adjust this one on the right side, click on the handle, hold down Alt, and now when I move the handle, only this one will move and will be adjustable. Likewise, this side, click, hold down Alt, and I can adjust this one. Start a new object, one cusp point. Now when I create the second point, I'm going to hold down Alt before I click, hold the mouse button down and drag, and this time you'll see only one Bezier handle is being created. And this is known as a tangent point. I create another tangent point, hold down Alt, click, pull and get the handle. Again, Alt, click, handle. The reason for using tangent points is usually because you want to directly have a very sharp angle. If I did this and then just do a left click here to create a cusp point, I get a very sharp angle. That's a tangent point. Those are the three types of points you can draw. Next, I'll take a look at how you can change the points. I have 3 cusp points, and I want to convert this cusp point into a smooth point. If I select the point, then hold down Control and begin to drag, I get a smooth point. There's a big chance that when you try these for the first time, you will not get them to work as I'm showing you. The reason being that the order of clicking and holding down the modifier keys is very important, and it's very easy to get the order wrong from time to time. If you make a mistake, just use the Control and Z on your keyboard to go back to where you were, and then try again. One more time. Click on the point. I would normally move away, hold down Control, go back and select the point with the left mouse button and drag it, keeping the left mouse button down. That's a cusp to a smooth point. What if you wanted to change a smooth point to a cusp point? Well, one way is actually to take this handle and push it into here, take the other handle and push it into there, and the point will be converted to a cusp point. However, there is a very easy keyboard shortcut, and it's found under Tools. And here you can see cusp points, smooth points. You can change a point to a cusp point by using the shortcut U, and you could change a cusp point to a smooth point by using Y on the keyboard. Let's try that. This is a smooth point. I want it to be a cusp point, so I press U on the keyboard. Same here, select and U. Now this is a cusp point, select it, press Y on the keyboard, and I'm back to a smooth point again. If I go to this cusp point and I wanted to make it a tangent point, I first select it, hold Alt, and left click and drag. And you see I have a tangent point now. If I want to change the tangent point and I press Y, I have a smooth point. And if I press U, I'm back to a cusp point. When you are drawing cusp points, there is one function which is not available in Red at the moment. To show you that, I'll select the pen tool again, and by the way, instead of going over to the toolbox, many of the tools have keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard shortcut for the pen tool is P, one cusp point. Now the function which I would like is if I wanted to have a horizontal line between here. In many vector programs, if you hold down Shift, you would be drawing the next point either horizontally, or if you chose this way, it would be vertical. And if you chose somewhere halfway between, it would automatically lock to 45 degrees. But as I said, at the moment, you can't do this in Red. There is, however, a technique which can help. Click as near as possible to where you think the horizontal line would be. You can see very clearly at this point the red-black striping. I'll select the point I want to move, and I can move away now after having selected it. Hold down Control on the keyboard and then use the up and down arrows To nudge 1 pixel at a time. I'm holding down Control now and I begin pressing the up arrow. You can see it's gradually moving up. And as it moves up to the horizontal position, you'll see that the lines in the stripe are getting longer. The black lines are getting longer and longer and longer. And now suddenly they disappeared and you can only see this solid red color, or if I move closer, a solid yellow color. Now this is horizontal. Using the up, down, left and right keys can also be used to move whole objects frame by frame. In this example, if I go to the hollow arrow tool, so the rectangle is created around the object, now to hold down Control, and I'm going to use the down arrow key, you can see I can go down 1 pixel at a time, or use the right arrow key, up arrow key, and left arrow key. So I have quite good control in positioning this on a screen. If I'm working with an object and I zoom in very close on the object and I want to see another part of the object, there are two methods of moving around the screen. One would be to use the slider here for the horizontal movement and the slider here for the vertical movement. An easier way sometimes is to use the hand tool. Now the hand tool is down here in the toolbox, but as you can see, H is the shortcut. So if I'm in the composite window and I press H, nothing will happen until I move the mouse and the pen tool will change to a hand. Now, this hand doesn't actually move the object. This hand will move the whole screen, so I can drag the screen to whichever position I want and then continue working on the object. If I want to move a point either horizontally or vertically, I can restrict the movement by moving over the point, holding down the left mouse button, press Shift. Now when I begin to move either horizontally or vertically, I will be restricted to that direction only. Let's begin by going horizontally. And when I try and move up and down, it's impossible. Go back again to the beginning. Click again. Hold down Shift. But this time I'll start moving vertically. And you see I'm restricted to vertical only. If I wanted to draw a semicircle, select the pen tool, make a cusp point, move to the horizontal position where you want the second cusp point, use the method I showed you earlier by holding down Control and using the up and down arrows to get this line horizontal, then go to approximately the middle of the line, hold down Alt, click. Do you see already two handles? I have a smooth point, and now I can move this up and then start to adjust. I can also have a grid on so I could check that it was exactly in the correct position. So that's how you add an extra point. Alt, click. It's a smooth point that you create, but if you wanted a cusp point here, just to show you what happens, I'll move back out here and then press U, and it will make a cusp point with two straight lines. Now, the best way to get to know cusp points, tangent points, smooth points, and how to create and change them is to just sit down with some free time and play around with the whole concept of spline objects. In later tutorials, I'll take a closer look at spline primitives. And that's all for me for now.